Welcome to Board Games Anonymous, the podcast about board gamers and the insane fun we have at the table together. This is Chris.
And this is Anthony.
And this is episode 444, the last 10 best games of the year. We like to thank all our Patreon backers for helping us bring you a brand new episode. All right, friends, we are back, and we are back with one of the biggest episodes because it has the biggest games, our last 10. You know our last 10. It's our last 10 series because we've been around for now 10 plus years, and we've accumulated a lot of episodes, played a lot of games, and we're going to take a look at the last 10, which has been some of the greatest and some of the not so greatest games of all time.
Heck yeah. So we're going to go back through. We're actually, what we're going to kind of do is relitigate the best games of the last 10 years. So for the last 5 years, we've had a game of the year. Before that, we kind of got cute with it. So we've kind of gone back and pulled out from our various tournaments and top lists and everything. And we have the last 10 games of the year that we have identified. And so we're going to take a look and see what came out that year, maybe what's aged well, what hasn't aged well, if our game of the year has changed, and if so, why.
Ooh.
And discuss kind of, we've already gone over in the past, like which of these years is the best year for games, but from each of these years, what is the best game that came out? We're going to talk about that.
Excellent. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun because have they aged well or not so well?
Exactly, yeah, because some of these, like, at least for me, several of these have changed. We'll see if we share that opinion or not, but it will be interesting to discuss.
Have you played Distilled yet?
No.
Okay.
I actually have a copy. I tracked one down, and it's a lot going on. And I have lots of games with a lot going on, which preview for my At the Table this week. So, like, between this and Hegemony and the game I'm going to talk about today, it's many hours of learning. But no, I have not played it yet.
Okay, because that game where you're distilling liquors and you distill them in different vats and so forth and so on, and as they distill, and once you open them to pour them out to bottles and to sell them in points and victory stuff and yada yada yada, you get these flavor cards, and the flavor cards can be positive flavors or negative flavors. So it reminds me of these games, right? We played these games, we own these games, but then when you do a later opening this many years later, are they as tasty? Are they as sweet? Or did something get involved in the process over the last several years that has kind of spoiled them? They're still fine, but maybe not of the bouquet that we're used to, or we were used to back then. So it should be interesting.
I love this whiskey metaphor you just used for our show. That's amazing.
I did. Thank you.
Woohoo! That's great.
Excellent. So we have so much going on, and there's so much to tell you. And again, all these details will be coming up. One of the things that we wanted to talk about, because it is near and dear to our heart, is we're always trying to reach out to the community, get more people gaming, right? So the more people get gaming, the more games you get to the table. And that's such an amazing, amazing benefit. Over the years of playing tabletop gaming, we have, and I'm sure you have, noticed that there aren't as many girls and women in gaming, especially at the table. And of course, designers and publishers and themes about, women doing extraordinary things, which they do all the time. We wanted to support an initiative to help more girls and women get into gaming, get to the table, design, publish, do all those great things with our upcoming charity event. So we talked about this last week, and we'll be talking about this up until November 4th, where this event comes out, and hopefully it's awesome, and hopefully you're there. It's Tabletop Charity Game 2023. It's going to be in Fanwood, New Jersey. Full details are up on BoardGamersAnonymous.com. You'll see a whole list of all the different charity events that we've done over many years. There's actually more. It's just we haven't got them all up on the website from the past 10 years. But this one here, Tabletop Charity Game 2023. We're working with our partners at Board Games for the Better. They've been great, and they've been supporting us to get local Girl Scout troops to be our VIPs. We're going to give them a great day of gaming, and we are going to raise money and support for the Girl Scout Troop 6000. This is a Girl Scout troop made up of Girl Scouts from all around New York City that are currently living in transitional housing situations, shelter situations, but they're part of Troop 6000 and they do everything else that Girl Scouts do. And we want to support them into getting them into gaming and to share their experiences and share some fun with them as well. So, us, Board Games for the Better, and all of our partners and associates and organizations that are working with us are supporting these great goals. Board Games for the Better is doing a lot of outreach to publishers, companies, and designers to bring those games to the table. So if you're a publisher out there or a designer out there, hopefully you've been able to see Board Games for the Better. Hopefully they've reached out to you. If they haven't, reach out to us because we want to get your games into the hands of these new gamers, and especially if you have games that were designed, published, or focus on a female lead character, that would be amazing because it really shows some proper representation in gaming. So, whatever you have, we appreciate your support. And if you are in the area at that event, we would love for you to join us. It's going to be a $10 donation to attend that day, or $20 if you want to have a game table to sell, trade, buy games for other people. And it's just going to be a fun day of gaming events and programs. I think next week at this time, we will have a full list of events and programs for you in more details. But again, if you have any questions or any interests or you want to support or reach out to us, you can reach me, Chris. Hi, it's me, Chris. Chris at BoardGamersAnonymous.com. I know that's not a surprise as far as the email address is concerned, but Chris at BoardGamersAnonymous.com. And again, you can find all of this information, so much more. The best website for board gaming out there, guaranteed. Maybe Board Game Geek is an exception here. BoardGamersAnonymous.com. But beyond that, we're awesome. Tons of stuff out there. Check it out. All right, Anthony, so that's what's going on with us. What's going on with our industry? I think it's time to take a look back into our special report of Food Chain Magnet, special edition, What the Heck is this going to cost report.
Whew, man. This is literally all we're talking about in the last week and a half, 2 weeks since they announced this. What are they going to charge us for this game? And so here's where we're coming from, right? Food Chain Magnet, the original version of this game, is $120, right? You can get it for $89
if you
online.
get lucky. If you get lucky, yeah.
If you get lucky, right? The catch-up mechanism and other ideas, also $120. Also can get that for about $89 at the low end, if you get lucky. If you get lucky. So the lowest possible price you can get these two for together, because they don't come in one box, two separate things, is $178. So what do we think the special edition with all the upgrades is going to cost?
$1
Chris,
billion.
what do you think?
$1 billion. I think it's going to be $1 billion.
Okay.
Yeah.
$1 billion. Okay. They only have to sell one and they'll be good.
That's their plan.
Yeah.
I think it's complete Dr. Evil. It's just going to be $1 billion and that's all it is.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm not going to buy it. Are you going to buy it?
I just want to know the price. I'm not sleeping. I'm drinking. Thankfully, it's seltzer, but I'm drinking. I'm drinking heavily. I have a drinking problem with seltzer now at this point. I just want to know the price here. I can't imagine the price. I can't conceive of the price. It's just, I don't know. Like you mentioned the numbers there. And then if you take a look at the current page on GameFound, they tease. Again, there's no gameplay changes, which is odd. It's a little odd because, again, usually when there's an upgraded deluxeified version, there's usually something. It's a little bit like a little here, a little there, a little pickup here, there. Like, nope, game is the same. You're like, okay, got it, good. And they're like, how would you like all of these intensely pastel, candy-colored houses, buildings, and bright artwork and everything? And I'm like, sure, why wouldn't I want to play those things? And at the same time, if you've ever played Food Chain Magnet, you know it's this intense, immense experience at the table, almost like nothing else. I mean, splatter games are generally like that, but I think this game, because of the length and the complexity, but mostly because you can really screw other people hard in this game, and they have to stick around and they have to play the rest of it while they just can't do anything. It's just bad. So I don't understand what the thought was here. The reason that these games aren't as graphically ornate is because they're not meant for that kind of wide-ranging general public audience. It's meant for people when they look at the game, just like when you look at, animals in nature, right? Like there's certain colors and patterns that let you know to back the heck off, right? Like if that's not your thing, you should not be there. So when you look at Food Chain Magnet, it is honestly, I think, the artwork and the graphic design is fantastic. I think the board is bland as heck, but also if I'm walking past that table and I see that grid paper, cardboard art on the table, I know exactly what type of experience I'm in for. Now with all these funky, colorful kind of stuff, a newbie might decide to sit down and play this. and let's be honest, right? Just like you have, laws in place where, liquor and drugs and other stuff can't be candy coated. I think that this is going to be a tremendous mistake candy coating one of the heaviest mainstream Euro games out there. I'm like, this game is serious crunch. And that I think it all undermines this, plus the fact that they're like, this game plays, let's say, play with 2 to 5 serious gamers. Anthony, ready for this? Play with 2 to 5 serious gamers. I don't know what serious means. In 2 to 4 hours.
Nope.
It will take 2 to 4 hours to explain the game to a new gamer who hasn't played a Splatter game before.
I mean, your first time through, you 4 hours, easy.
5 players?
Yeah,
5 players.
I mean, the only way you're going to get it down is if everybody chooses the short game, which never happens.
Mm-hmm.
It never happens unless you like table talk your way into it.
Yes.
Yeah, man, I don't know. This is going to be a weird one. I'm a little concerned. I feel like this one could be hit with the, I accidentally backed this and this is absolutely not for my group kind of situation where this is one of the highest rated games on Board Game Geek. It's in the top 30, I think.
Crazy.
I think it could drop a little bit. I think it's possible people back this game, realize what it is, and be like, "Oh, I hate this."
Sure.
And it could drop it. Because of that candy coating, like you said. I hope not. I love this game, but
what we're talking about here for people who are not obsessively committed to the altar that is BGG and its top 100 is that we have speculated, theorized, researched, and spoke to our colleagues, and it seems like, and it's believable, again, depending on how you believe all this kind of stuff, is that certain games reach the top 100 or get to number 1 because there's something about the game in the way in which it presents itself that keeps people away that would not normally like it, right? So like Twilight Struggle, you look at the box, you know exactly what you're in for. You see the game on the table, you know exactly what you're in for. It's a 2-player game, super heavy, crunchy, historical, situational kind of game. No casual or gateway gamer or even like a medium to heavy gamer. Like these are very heavy games. Like it's not to disparage anybody else, but like this is a different type of game in and of itself. This is like an 18XX game. Like this is akin or parallel to an 18XX game. Like there is gateway games, there's party games, there's deduction games, all kinds of. There's light Euros, medium Euros, even heavy Euros. And then there's splatter games, and there's 18XX, at least how I feel. So if you do have people who are bought this game, try to get this game to the table, and they're just not that kind of fan of this, I think it's going to drop far lower than you think.
Yeah. Well, I hope not. Again, it's a great game, but it's a very particular type of game for a very particular type of gamer.
No, I completely agree. But let's check back the board. Let's check back at the board. Do we have the price, Anthony?
No.
Okay. We will check back at the end of the show if we do have a price. Price yet, Anthony?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll move on until we see if we can get a price at a later point. So hopefully that price doesn't kill us all.
It's gonna kill us all.
Good times. I mean, I love the game. I do love the game. It's been in my top 100, give or take, the year. And I don't own it because I just wouldn't get it to the table because I don't have enough of that type of gamer. So, uh,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, I would certainly pick this up. But
I mean, and I do own it, so I like. And they're saying 0 gameplay changes. I'm like, well, I like what it looks like now, so I'm good.
it actually looks decent. The board's
Yeah.
terrible, but that's the game. It's like buying a Prius. Like it's meant to look like that.
Buying a Prius.
Well, no, I mean that was built into the original design of the Prius. Like it was meant to look. I mean, it's meant to look aerodynamic, right, to save on the fuel
Yeah, yeah,
economy.
yeah.
But it was meant to look odd. Like they purposely leaned into that to make it distinct. So when you look at a splatter game, they are distinctive, and it's a splatter. You know, a splatter a mile away. It's splatter, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Anthony, that's just a little bit about what's going on in the industry. We also do have some Patreon stuff coming up. We got a new episode, right?
Yeah, yeah. So just a few days ago, obviously, we had Chris's most recent episode of Kicking the Habit was up. So you can check that out for all the new games that went up last week. I have my newest episode of my top 100 run through is going up not exactly the same day as this. So either the day after or the day before. But if you're listening to this now, it's probably there. So you can go check that out. That's in patreon.com/BGA for anybody at the $5 tier or higher. You get access to all of our bonus episodes. We have over 50 bonus episodes in there you can check out. Um, and we release one every week or two. So check them out.
Excellent. Yeah, and again, thank you all for your support. It allows us to do all these awesome things like the podcast and the charity event. All right, so I think that's what's going on with us. Let's talk about the games that we want to hit the table. Let's talk about our acquisition disorders, my friend. What do you have up for us this week?
All right, acquisition disorder for me this week is it's an odd one only in the sense that it's a game I hadn't really thought about in a while, and then uh, it's on Kickstarter now. So this game is called Haggis, and when I was introduced to the game, it was already out of print, and I'm pretty sure I'd only played it online. It's on Board Game Arena, um, but it was like in that trick taking phase, and I played it a bunch online during COVID because the friends that I was playing trick taking games with, we got into them right before COVID, and then this is one of the ones that was online, and it's one of the better ones. But it's been super out of print forever, and the Portland Game Collective has managed to track down the rights from Sean Ross, the designer, and has brought it back. So this is a trick taking climbing game, and it's honestly, you look at it and it just nothing looks different or unique, right? There are 5 different suits or colors, with cards ranging from 1 to 10, and you are betting on what you think you can accomplish and kind of working your way up the ladder, right? There's nothing unique from like the outside perspective. But what makes the game so interesting is that it really requires you to think carefully about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, right? So you're trying to play out all of your cards first, and you're capturing points by winning tricks. Um, but also, like the bets are part of that as well. So it's like this kind of doubling up element of it. Uh, and so yeah, I'm excited for this. I only have a handful of trick taking games. I know I've talked about them recently a lot, but I there aren't many that I'd like enough to actually own.
Hmm.
So I think I have 2 that I'm like legitimately love, and like Texas Showdown is one, and then Skull King is another, and then everything else I'm like that's fine. I would play that. It's enjoyable, but I don't know if I would buy it. But Haggis is one where I'm like I might pick that up, right? Because it has all these different types of combinations. You can play singles, you can play sets, like multiple cards of the same thing. You can play sequences, you can play stairs where you have sets of pairs effectively, like 2 3 2 3 2 3 of different suits. You can play bombs, which are 3 5 7 9 of different colors. Um, so it's a lot of different ways to kind of manage your hand and make it work and then play that out. And it's really hard to guess what other people are going to do, but if you're paying attention and you play the game enough, you can kind of get there. So Haggis is cool. The one thing I will say is I think I like the old artwork better. This new one is like almost it's like stained glass. Is kind of the
Mm,
aesthetic they went for,
yeah,
which I like fine. But the old one was like more of like the Celtic drawings
sure.
um and like the different symbols, and it's like it's more classical, almost
Hmm.
calligraphic. I don't know what the best word for that is, but Stained glass is cool. I don't know that I love it, but the game is good. Um, the Kickstarter has a second game up there as well called Trick Takers. I don't really know enough about this one to say that I'm interested in it. I know that uh, it's from Japan, and that's kind of like the hot spot of trick taking game development right now, and has been for a few years. Is in Japan. They make a lot of trick taking games over there. And this one has like unique characters to help you build those tricks. So it looks cool. But if I was to back this, I'd probably just pick up Haggis, um, for nostalgia, if nothing else. So it's on Kickstarter now. It's up there, honestly, just for like 2-3 more days. So if you're hearing this now, you have like a couple days left. It has funded already, so you will get it. And Portland Game Collective has done a few games already. They've all showed up, so they are trustworthy and they do a good job with these upgrades. So check it out, Haggis on Kickstarter right now.
Nice. So it's good to see a. Again, this is what Kickstarter should be,
Yeah.
and is typically not.
No, it's pre-order central for big companies that don't need it.
Yes. It's funny. I was talking to someone the other night, and they mentioned as a publisher that more and more these days, when people come up to their booth and talk about their games, the newer generations into board gaming seem to believe or are under the impression, because of Kickstarter, because Kickstarter is so pervasive, that you only get these modern hobby board games through crowdfunding.
Yeah.
And again, it's completely understandable, because I think Cool Stuff Inc. just emptied out their collection of tabletop games.
Yeah.
Asmodee purchased Miniature Market. Game Nerds is still out there, and I'm sure there's one or two other good companies out there. But most of the online stuff has closed shop. Obviously, the friendly local game store is a rare and dwindling breed of opportunities to actually learn and see new games at the table, because CCGs have eaten up, every table space and counter and shelf out there these
Yeah.
days. So that makes sense. So, like, again, as a publisher, I know it must be a challenge, because you're fighting against the marketing of Kickstarter, but also new people coming into the industry believe that the only way that they get the best games and the newest games, more times than not, is they have to go to Kickstarter. So, like, now you have people who want to get involved in the industry investing money out there, and it just sits.
Yeah, it sucks because it's done so much good for the hobby. Like a lot of the best games, we're going to talk about a lot of these games today.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't exist without Kickstarter. But at the same time, there's so many companies that take advantage of that system and
Yeah.
like weaponize it effectively against us with the
Yes.
FOMO and everything else. You're like, it's gross, and it's really hard to say I'm pro Kickstarter or I'm anti Kickstarter, because it's really like how people use it. But
Sure.
I really liked the days when they're like, "Oh, this game's coming out. It's going to hit the stores. Pre-order it. Go pick it up when it's
Yeah.
ready." I'm like, "Great!" And I know I'm not missing anything. I have the same game as everybody else. We all have it at the same time, and we can play it immediately.
Yeah.
This is fun, And we don't really get that anymore. We get stuff that shows up in the mail 3 years later, and you're like,
I back this?
I got to learn this now. Oh, I backed. I'll talk about it later. I backed Voidfall. I don't have anybody to play this with now. Okay. Like, but when I paid for it, I did. So it's just
Yes.
it's a tough situation.
Yeah. It really has radically changed the industry. Not necessarily for better or worse, but has certainly radically changed the industry. But again, back in the day, in the Haggis game here, especially,
Yeah.
this is where it works really well, and this is where it needs to be championed. And that's why I do Kick in the Habit, because the vast majority of the games that I cover are first time designers.
Right.
And that's what's wonderful and wondrous about it, because it does support people that normally couldn't get something like this out. On the other hand, most of the oxygen has been, sucked out because of so and so giant company and so 3,000 miniatures and things that you will never play with, or things that have not been game tested, and so forth and so on. So,
Right.
yeah, that's the thing. All right. Well, one of the many Kickstarters, Game Found, and other things that I've been talking about on our Patreon episode, one of them I want to let you know about, because it's odd and interesting, and also a first-time designer, is Mycelia, the strategic mushroom game. a dynamic competition for space and resources to create your own mushroom kingdom. Now, the mycelium and the mycelium network are the unseen parts of mushrooms. These are the long threads hidden beneath the forest floor that they're basically the roots of the mushrooms, and they act as I guess a lot of things, right? They're a network in which they communicate, over vast, and I mean vast. I mean like largest organisms on the planet. This is part of that, and how they communicate to each other, how they communicate to trees, how they are a bridge for. I just recently learned this, how certain trees are evergreens, so they draw nutrients and stuff during the winter more than the summer, because you have these other big, leafy trees. They draw a lot of nutrients during the summer and the spring when their leaves are out. So these trees actually exchange resources, and the mycelium network takes 10%, for themselves. But it's an amazing, wondrous idea that there's living networks underneath our feet and throughout the planet, and the trees are communicating with themselves and others and plants and these mushroom organizations under the ground that you never. It blows my mind. And again, it's also been used on the recent Star Trek Discovery series. That was a thing. Warp drive, spore drive, which is a thing.
Spore drive, yeah.
I mean, who knew that was a thing? And it's a huge thing, and it's awesome. And now they're making board games, Anthony. This is the new Pirates. This is the new Pirates/Zombies.
Mushrooms are the new pirates?
Well, I mean, think of The Last of Us, right? That's mushroom-based.
Yeah, that's mushrooms, yeah.
Mushroom zombie. See, that's what it was. Everyone was into zombies, and then they were like, the next thing, right? These marketing people were like, mushrooms. And like, you're crazy. Like, no, we'll do a transition, right? Now it's mushroom-based zombies, and then eventually it's mushrooms. Just mushrooms. So this is hitting board gaming. Again, and Elizabeth Hargrave is coming out with a mushroom game herself not too long from now. So that's also going to be up and available. So there you go. 2 games right there. That's not many more. So this game itself is an interesting light Euro, and it's some gorgeous artwork. Because again, who would think mushrooms? Like, that's something I want to look at. That's something I want. Gorgeous artwork here. Really smart game design as far as like the graphic design is concerned, because you're using these different triangles to set up the land in which the network spreads across. And then as it spreads throughout the land, you have opportunity to pick up resources. So you have like your mother mushroom, which is your large disc that, expands and reaches out across this network that you and the other players are creating. And as it does so, you'll be able to put out more and more tiles. Now, how you put the tiles out, how you match the symbols, what bugs and other resources become available, you'll be able to actually fruit. You'll be able to actually expend spores to grow more mushrooms on the board, to add to your own particular tableau. And then as you pick up spores, they could also be taken away by other people. But again, your idea is to accumulate as much as possible, and then those spores get shifted on the board based upon the wind die. Again, this is incredibly dynamic. On top of which, once your mushroom, has reached its kind of limit, it actually decays and then becomes part of the network, and you gain a bonus ability for that. So it's amazing and weird and beautiful that this is a game that is about something that is so essential to our existence on this planet that we never knew. And now you can discover through this board game, which is something that is so wondrous about our hobby, that like, hey, I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what it means. I don't know how it operates. Cool. Here, play the board game. Oh, I get it now. It's fun. It's artistic. It's challenging. And it's an amazing looking game. So it's something definitely to check out. It's on Kickstarter, and you'll have until Sunday, October 8th, 2023 to pick it up.
Mushrooms!
I know.
That's all I got. Looks cool.
Well, how about this? The standard edition for the game is $49. So that's
not bad.
Not bad. Now they have deluxe editions that I won't get into because it obviously gets very expensive. So, yeah, but again, prices being what prices are, who knows? And again, let me check back with you, Anthony. Do we have a price on Food Chain Magnet upgrade?
Not yet, sir.
Ah, damn it. All right. Well, if you want to go super fancy with this to the point where everything is made out of wood, including a wood box, you could back it for $731.
Oh my god.
Yeah, 41 people.
Ew.
41 people have done it. I don't know why,
Gross.
but yes, it's currently up there. So first time designer, check it out. Check it out. Again, check out your first time designers. They deserve your respect and your interest. Don't necessarily have to back it, but definitely check it out.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony, that's everything that we want to get to the table. Let's talk about things that did hit the table. We'll let people know if those games are a buy and they should run out and pick those games up, even if they are $1 billion, or if
Mm.
those games are a play and they should sit down with them because, it's a first time designer and you want to check it out. Or if those games are a dodge and you should avoid them because, let's be honest, they're $8 billion. Or if those games are the dread burn and then just let them decay and become a part of the Mycelia network. So, Anthony, what did you play this week? Or get to the table or the Mycelium network?
Yeah, no, it might as well be Mycelium Network with what I was messing with this week. I mentioned last week that I got in Voidfall, like that Friday. We recorded Sunday night, and that was my whole weekend, was punching it and setting it up. And I spent about a week learning how to play it,
Mm-hmm.
ish. And now I've gone through it a little bit, and I'm not ready to give it a score because this game is ridiculously complicated.
What?
I know, Mind Clash games, right?
Who
Who knew?
knew?
I didn't know. Why did I back this? No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually having fun with it. But so here's the thing about Voidfall, and I think this is the main reason why it is so complicated, is they've designed a system that works for competitive, cooperative, and solo play, which we sometimes see in games where they're like, it does everything, and you're like, no, it doesn't. It does one thing and two other things kind of crappy. Um, I I can't tell if the competitive version of this game is great, but I will say that the tutorial that they put you through, which is decent, requires you to play through the competitive rules. And from what I can see and how it functions and how it flows, I'm like, it seems pretty solid. And then playing through the cooperative version, which is also the solo version, I was like, this also seems pretty solid. Now, where I don't have like a comprehensive view here, so I can't, this is the reason why I'm not saying this game is great and you should go buy it, is A, I haven't played with real people, and that's important for a lot of reasons, right? This is a 4X game where you are out exploring various systems and you need to be able to interact with other people and fight them. Um, and two, the scenario book gives you like, I don't have the number in front of me. It's like 50 or 60 different scenarios across the 3 different play styles. And I've been through like 2.5 of these. So it's really difficult to say definitively, oh yeah, this is great. But what I will say is it's more intuitive than it seems based on the rule book. And once you actually get through everything and kind of it starts to flow a little bit, like second playthrough and all the iconography starts to make sense. There's a lot of very cool stuff here, and it flows very smoothly and interestingly in a way that I don't think a Mind Clash game has done in a while.
Mm.
Right? It gives me like almost Tricarion vibes in terms of just like the flow of things making sense
Wow.
thematically and
Okay.
interestingly. Um, Now, mechanically, I'm not going to run through all the rules for this because it would take an hour and we don't have time for that. But what I will say is the rule books are not great to learn the game.
Ooh, that's
In
not good.
fact, they're borderline terrible to learn the game. And the reason why is they have split it up into 3 different books. So you have the rule book itself, a glossary with a list of like everything that you'll actually interact with, and then a scenario guide that also has your setup in it and the tutorials in it. And then for each section of any of those, they've broken it down by here's the base rules that are always the same. So as you're reading it, here's all the rules that are always the same. And then in blue, this is the co-op and solo stuff. And in red, here's the competitive stuff. And then if you have this icon, it means ignore these rules for the tutorial. And if you have this icon, it means ignore these rules in the tutorial until you get to round 2. Like I read through it and I was like, I do not understand how to play this game. Now, what I will say is thankfully, thankfully, Mindclash partnered with Paul Grogan and he made a video on his gaming rules channel
Mm-hmm.
that is very good. So watch that. Because if you watch that, you have like a 90% baseline, and then the rulebook suddenly makes sense because you
Ah.
understand all the things it's trying to tell you. So I tried to go through the rule book. It's like 2 days, and I was like, "What the heck are you trying to tell me?" Like, I'm like bungling my way through turns, and it's and there's a legit menu of iconography that is 4 full pages, like 150 different icons. So as your every action you take in the first time you play, you're like, "Wait, hold on, what does that mean? Hold on, page 2, no, page 3, no, page 4, there it is. Okay. Oh, okay, move the corruption. Got it." Like, it's ridiculous. Um, so the game is just it's and I don't know what they could have done differently because it is a lot. There's a lot going on here. Um, but the video is very fantastic. Like, I don't know how he did it, but Grogan he made a really good video. It's an hour and 2 minutes, which is long for a rule video, but not as long as I would have thought based on trying to read through these. And once you've read that, you can go through and kind of piecemeal together the rest of the rules, and it doesn't take forever. So Voidfall for me so far has been like this weird, convoluted, almost like out of body experience, trying to like mesh together what the rules are and what I'm supposed to be doing. But like last night, I stayed up till like 1 o'clock in the morning, kind of just like playing through and like running against the Voidborn, sorry, and like clearing out the galaxy space. And this was just like the tutorial, and I'm like, this is actually really fun. I really enjoy this a lot. So, um, and the reason why, and here's the one bit of rules I'll get into is there's only 3 rounds in the game, but in each round there's a certain number of turns based on an event card. Like you place an event card out, and it will tell you how many turns you're going to get, and it seems to be between 3 and 5. So you don't always know how many turns you're going to have, which is really cool, right? So you can't like super plan out like, oh, we're going to have 9 turns in the game. Like, well, you could have between 9 and 15 turns in the game. It depends on what cards come out. Um, and then on each of those turns, you're going to take a card from your hand and you're going to play it, and you're going to choose 2 of the actions on the card. There's 3 actions on every card, and then there's various ways to like level that up and take like, I'm going to take the third action, or I'm going to take this extra agenda action. But the hand of cards is available to you in full at the start of each of those rounds. So you have 9 actions, 9 sets of actions to choose from on your turn. And then you trying to like piecemeal them together. So you're like, okay, there's 5 turns in this round. I want to accomplish this by the end of the round because that's my scoring agenda. So I need to make sure that I can invade over here. But before I can invade over there, I have to level up my fleet. And before I can level up my fleet, I have to make sure I have these resources available. So what order am I going to play these cards in? Right. And then again, I'm not playing competitively, but if you're playing competitively on top of that, you're like, okay, but if they invade, then I got to worry about that. So I got to make sure this is upgraded enough to maybe I upgrade the fleet first, even though it's less efficient, just to make sure I'm safe. Uh, it's very good. So I will say I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep playing it. I'll probably spend another week or so on this. I'm going out of town the next week, so I got to get this done. Like be comfortable and done with what I'm doing by next weekend. So next time we talk, I will have, if nothing else, a solo review for you. But I will say up front, like it's very good. I'm happy so far with my purchase. It's not a convoluted mess that I thought it would be. A lot of it is becoming very intuitive once I know the rules. And I have gotten sucked into a couple games now, which is always a good sign. Not just by checking my watch, like I got to get to bed soon. Crap. It's just like, no, this is fun. I'm going to keep going until I fall asleep. So, Voidfall, good experience so far. We'll see what it turns into, and hopefully I can get it to the table with other people soon too.
So here's the question that I have, and maybe this could be just maybe this is a thing or not a thing. So there's multiple game modes on top of having asymmetric factions.
Yeah,
There's a competitive game mode. There's a
yeah,
cooperative game mode.
yeah,
There's a solo game mode.
yeah.
And then with the solo game mode, there's multiple scenarios and multiple map setups.
There's multiple scenarios and map setups for all 3 game modes.
Okay. And then there's like a ton of different asymmetric factions on top of that.
14 factions.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's comparable. It's not quite to Twilight Imperium, which has 17, but it's close.
But is the rule book in the game itself a challenge, more of a challenge than it needed to be because it's competitive, cooperative, and solo?
I think so. I think that's the main issue. And so here's the thing, though: most games like this, and Turchi games in general, they'll give you the rule book for the competitive rules, and then there'll be a whole separate rule book for the solo rules and the cooperative stuff. That's how Turkey usually does it. Um, and then when you read, if you just read that solo rule book first, it would make no sense. You have to read the entire
Yeah.
competitive rule book and pretty much multi-hand it to learn the basics and then learn the solo. And it's a big barrier, and a lot of people don't want to do it. So I think what they were trying to do is, no, just read the parts that are relevant for you, and it'll make sense. And maybe it's just me, but like I need to know how the whole game works before I can know how to change the elements of it. So I almost prefer the old method, even though it takes a little longer, because it's just this was not intuitive to me. And I've read some people online say that they really like it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not even giving it as a knock on the game, because as I go back through it, I'm like, it's all here. The rules are all here. They're
Hmm.
well written. When I have to look up a rule, it's clear what I'm supposed to do. It's a well written rule book. It's just 60, 70 pages across 3 different books, or I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? This is a lot. Where am I finding this stuff? And that's just the complexity of a Mind Clash game, I think.
Yeah, I've always loved Mind Clash because they take big swings, and I have a handful of games, not many, less than 5 for sure, where the game does competitive and cooperative. They're a little bit older
Right.
games, but now the solo mode is almost like a given, and Turtzy is obviously everywhere because he's an AI.
Yeah.
But maybe they would have been better off separating the games, like coming out with 3 separate games just to kind of make it more consumable. Because I think this is a problem that a lot of people have is, and you mentioned this with the Food Chain Magnet, you get the game, you get it home, it's Kickstarter, and like now you have to dive into like an endless amount of things because the Kickstarter tried to offer literally everything,
Yeah.
right? They could have offered a cooperative version of this later on because I'm assuming you're going to want to play competitive. I'm assuming that's the general gist of like what people are there to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, here's the thing, the way I look at this is the base game is competitive. The stuff that makes it cooperative is extra.
Yeah.
Like there's an extra board, there's extra decks of cards, there's like it's not an AI really, but it's like these crisis things that come out and kind of guide the thing you're trying to face. So it feels like an expansion, a cooperative expansion
Hmm.
that you're layering on top of the game. And so I almost wish they had packaged it like that.
Yeah.
And I know they want Mind Clash is a big on like everything goes in the same box. This is how we do it. And I appreciate that because it's clear what you're getting and it's not a bunch of weird Kickstarter nonsense. But the flip side is I think if you were a competitive gamer and had no interest in the co-op solo stuff, this would be very frustrating for you.
Yes.
Because like, what is all this extra stuff? I don't need it. Why did I pay for it? And now I gotta like skim through the rules and like skip all this random stuff that I don't
Yeah.
care about. I could see that being very frustrating. I do care because I want to know both sets of rules. So I was like, it's fine. I just can't absorb both at the same time, and that's where my challenge came in. But I don't know. I don't know what the solution is for that. I think there's a really really good game here, and I think it's just like the barrier to entry is really high, and it worries me a little because I think a lot of people will be scared away when the game itself is, like a lot of Mind Clash games, not actually quite as complex as it seems up
Hmm.
front.
I wish they would have split it up into at least 2 games, if not 3. I think it would have been cheaper, and you could have picked what version that you liked. And again, we've had a lot of games like this where there's spiritual successors or other versions of the games that come out. I mean, like CO2, that has that kind of competitive cooperative thing. But one last question, I think. The co-op mode versus the solo mode, are they different games? Or is it just one person versus multiple people at the table?
There's a couple small tweaks between
Okay,
co-op and solo. The scenarios are different.
gotcha.
Is the big thing. Um,
Okay. I'm
but like the main thing that's different between competitive and co-op is the same for solo. Like the crisis board.
Yeah, I'm still very excited to play this. It seemed like, again, with Mind Clash it was just a little too much, and some of their recent games seemed like a little too much. But
Yeah,
I, you know, I'm love the artwork, too. Uh Buckle is the designer here who's done Imperium, all those different classics and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm excited to play. Hope we get to the table pretty soon. So,
yeah.
Anthony, I have the exact opposite for you as far as this is going to be a very short review versus a very long one. Ironically, this game probably has as much, if not way more stuff, which is really impossible to even think to say. I got to play Masters of the Universe, the board game, Clash for Eternia. If you are a long time, and I mean long time listener, we actually did this as like a premise or a funny thing that we did at the beginning of the episode, or I did at the beginning of the episode about He-Man and his little speech that he gives at the beginning of the episode
Yeah.
way back in the day. That is a deep cut as far as our episodes are concerned. Well, they listened. It took them long enough, but they actually made a board game about He-Man from Simon because Simon knows miniatures. So this was on Kickstarter. It got back to backers. All the backers paid a lot of money for all the plastic that came along this game. I don't know. I'm not going to go into the He-Man universe. It's He-Man. He's a big guy with a sword. He's fighting Skeletor, and you probably know who he is either from the cartoon, the action figures, the really cheesy movie with Dolph Lundgren, or the memes. There's memes now. There's He-Man memes. There's Skeletor memes. But what was interesting to me about this game, when obviously I knew about He-Man, I grew up around that period. It was still a little too young for me, but like this was the thing. I was familiar with the whole thing, familiar with the IP. Not so much interested in dropping, $400 for this game, give or take. But I I was interested because it was utilizing the one versus many gameplay mechanic that we had seen in Conan the Barbarian, which I thought was a great mechanic. And then it was also carried on, I guess, to Batman, which seemed like a muddled mess, Anthony, right? If I remember.
Yes, big old muddled mess. Also had the nonsense with competitive cooperative solo play, all mashed together in the same rulebook.
So this version, this Simon version, has seemed to see the light and recognize that people love this IP, but they love the game for the IP, and they instituted that one versus many mechanic with that programming board, and with literally every, I'm assuming here, every miniature that ever came out, every character that ever came out from the He-Man universe. Let me talk about the actual gameplay. So, what's really good about this also is the good guys can play as the main board. So like one versus many, one person will control a main deck, a main board, 3 heroes, and all these extra actions that they can play utilizing these little cubes that come onto the board. But also the bad guys could do that. So typically when you play these kind of games, the bad guys play like the dungeon master and plays all the characters on the board, and the heroes come in. But you can actually play it both ways, which is great. So all of the good people and the bad people, they have cards that allow themselves to play in either mode. So the game is fairly simple. Each game is a single scenario. Period. There's no legacy. There's no ongoing campaign. You sit down. You pick your character, good or evil. Characters are great. They have somewhat thematic play styles to their actual character on the show, or it's just fun. You decide what you're going to play based on the scenario. You pick your particular character, and again, if you're the one, you get to pick 3 characters to play against the other team. You set up the land. If you back the normal version, you get all the cardboard. If you back the advanced version, you've got a lot of plastic to kind of set up on the game board. And then the tracker board allows you, as the single player versus many, to both put your action cards across a row that will activate at certain times, one at a time. And the later you go in that particular round, the more power cubes you're going to get to either activate people on the big board or activate your individual character. So once you have your heroes and villains set up there, and again, there is a free for all mode, which is also pretty cool that they give you something and it doesn't radically change the gameplay. It's just you just play as a character. So you play your cards out there, you manage your health on the main board, and then you get a chance to play. The game itself is fairly simple. If it's your card that flips up because you planned it that way, you get to do a thing. So it's the activation phase. The activation phase gives you a couple of different options. They're all pretty simple. You're going to take 2 actions per turn. You can gain power. So you have all your power that you're going to get onto your board. You're going to be able to arrange the cubes because you played your card in a certain spot. and then by performing actions, you can attack. Duh. There's range. There is melee. There's line of sight involved, but it's not crazy line of sight. It's all hexed. There's interact. There's some tokens on the board that you have to, like, quote unquote, interact with in order to do a thing or to achieve a thing. You can move a character 3 spaces. Again, some characters have special abilities, but primarily it's 3 spaces. You can use a particular skill. And then there's bonus actions that you'll be able to utilize based upon your power cubes. You get to use one each of those per turn. And again, that's pretty cool. So basically, you're moving, you're attacking, you're using your special actions or using your special actions as attack actions in order to defeat the other side. The scenario will define what the goals are for that particular round. So it's not just like kill the other characters and that's it. When your character gets knocked out, you respawn. It was a kid's show. It's fine. Just go along with it. There's a lot of minions that come along with the game, so you do get a lot of cannon fodder if you want to just have fun running around with a giant sword and yelling at the top of your lungs. And throughout the game, as the game becomes more intense because people get knocked out, you gain additional skills. The additional skills are great because, again, they're very thematic, and they give you an opportunity to use your power cubes in different settings. That's it. It's plastic miniatures tactical skirmish game. Got to play recently on Saturday. Got to play it 2 more times. Got to see some of the scenarios. Play different characters. Play as the controller. Plays as the character. It's cool. Like, I don't know. Like, it's He-Man. If you're on board for He-Man and you got a bunch of bucks burning a hole in your pocket, this is certainly for you. Everyone else, I don't know. Like, it is a clean and simple tactical skirmish game, but it doesn't really offer any depth. I don't know if you want any depth from a He-Man game, but it doesn't offer it. It offers different scenarios, which again are cool because you get to play them. It takes a couple hours to play, but then you're done. And it's not something you have to necessarily struggle through multiple levels of a campaign. So, I'm going to give it a play. I don't think it had enough to give it a buy. The only way I could even see someone buying this, again, if you were a big fan of the IP. If you're a big fan of the IP, the gameplay's fine. There's not much complexity to it, but there is literally every plastic character if you backed all that additional stuff. Masters of the Universe, the board game from CMON, gets a play.
Hey, it plays not bad. I didn't think this would be good at all. So
yeah, I was worried after Batman that they had Conan came out and then they learned the wrong lesson. They're like, not only let's add every character, let's add every rule. So that overcomplicated Conan, and then this kind of underdid it. But considering it's He-Man, I'm fine with that. It works. It's not a tactical skirmish game that I particularly would ask to come to the table or want to play, but it plays fine. It's fine. There's nothing. It's a very streamlined system, and the characters, if you remember the characters, it plays pretty thematic as far as games like that goes.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, so that's everything that hit the table this week, Anthony. Let's talk about our feature review. Our feature review this week, of course, is The Last 10, the best games of the year for the last 10 years. We've been around for 10 years? Is that actually a thing?
That's what we've been telling people.
Oh, jeez. When did that happen?
Like a month and a half ago. Oh, my God. Old now.
We play a lot of games. We've seen things, man. We've seen things. We can't unsee the things.
They have this cell in our spreadsheet. I'm like, I've played all of these. That's a lot of my life.
Well played, my friend. Well played.
Yeah. All right. Existential corner over. Let's look at the last 10 years, best games of the year. So we're going to start with the most recent year because this is the easiest, I think, because I doubt we've changed our mind.
2023? Not yet, right?
No. We don't know yet. What was the best game of 2023? I don't know.
I might.
Do you? What is it?
I'm not gonna wait for the episode.
Tell me.
No. We can't tell people.
Ah, come on.
Nah, go ahead.
I'm drawing a blank. I don't know what's good this year.
No. You do your thing.
2022. We do know that
That's
one.
A year.
We named the best game of the year last year as War of the Ring, the card game.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that will have changed? in the last 9 months?
There has been a lot. I think 2022. It's going to. I think it's not been that long, but it reminds me of the year that nothing radically heavy came out. Like there was
Mhm.
good games, but it wasn't a heavy, crunchy year.
No,
And
not at all.
I remember all the award categories. There wasn't something out there that just like, hey, this is big, this is great, or there's like a whole bunch of stuff that you're gonna have to. Nope, nope, there was not. There was a lot of good games,
Yeah.
but yeah, it didn't. I mean, should we go through the list here?
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause- okay,
So what I did is I went through the top 1,000 or so
hmm
in Board Game Geek and pulled games out that I think speak to us personally. If you're
sure.
listening to this and you're like, "What about X game that came out in 2021?" I'm like, "Well, we didn't like it." So there you go.
There you go. We have to block out some things, otherwise we just can't go on
Yeah,
and
this
on.
episode will be 18 hours long.
Yeah,
So these were like games that we have played and considered. Heat Pedal to the Metal, which you
just reviewed it.
just reviewed.
It's on the Board Game Geeks hotness, so you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, that was all us. Uh,
Yes,
Carnegie,
yes,
which is probably the best heavy Euro of the year.
yes.
Toletum, got
Which
the
was good.
T games
Which was
back on
surprisingly
track.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of chits, but good.
Yep. Acropolis, nominated for a bunch of awards.
It was abstracty to like the hilt, but it played nice, clean, sharp.
Yeah. Mosaic, great Civ game.
Uh, it's a game. I know,
It's
like
a game.
it's a game. I love Civ games. It's a thing. It's a conversation. It's a conversation
Okay,
piece.
okay. There
Yeah,
you go. Sky Mines is in there. It's in the top 1,000, but it is also a
sure.
remake of Mombasa, which
Excellent. Thank you.
out of print, of course. Um, Marrakesh, which is a Feld game that I think you liked a lot more than I did.
Well, to be fair, I had to like drop like $400 or $500 in order to get a chance
That's
to
true.
get that to the table. So, but
Buyer's bias there.
I would say it was buyer's bias, but I think I'm a man who likes cube towers,
Sure.
and once you get a sense of the game itself, it's a fairly straightforward game.
Yeah.
It's almost like Mario Party in a way, where there's like different things you can do on the map, kind of thing.
Yeah, which is very Feld. So
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's a felt thing.
Revive was very hot coming out of Essen. I've played it. It didn't really click with me as much as I was hoped.
Same.
Planet Unknown, nominated for the Kennerspiel from Adam's Apple Games. Big sprawling kind of a space game.
Yeah.
Flamecraft, super light, but people were pretty hot on this one. Won a bunch of
It's
awards.
dragons, man.
Cute dragons.
Adorable, like crazy artwork. Not
So
AI
cute.
work, people.
No, not AI. Well, I hope not.
Certainly not.
Cat in the Box.
Nice trick taken.
More existential, philosophical trick taking game.
It's both a good game and a bad game
There you go.
at the same time. Yeah, if you haven't played it, you wouldn't know. That's all you have to say.
There you go. Mindbug, deceptively simple, but some more depth there than you think. Dwarf Romantic, based on the video game, won the Spiel des Jahres this year.
Not surprised.
Beer and Bread, one of the better two-player only games I've played in a while.
Yeah, that was surprised. I was really surprised by that. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. And then Atiwa. I put this on here myself. I know you didn't love it, but I like this Bat game a lot. I picked it up. I played it a bunch.
To be fair, you're a very big Batman fan, so I'm not surprised.
I love me some Batman. And I love just bats, comma, man.
You're a little biased, Batman.
Yeah. So would you say it's changed War of the Ring, the card game? Any of these surpassed that for you?
No, it did not. And I think my big takeaway was certainly Gen Con, where there was all of these games available to play. And I think you almost had to drag me kicking and screaming away from the tournament because I just wanted to play more War of the Ring, the card game.
I know. Yeah, there weren't enough people there. We only got a couple rounds in. I'm with you. This is still my number one from last year too.
Yeah, and regardless whether or not you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it plays so well, and it has been a very long time, and there's very few games that have like that team mechanic where you're playing with a team versus another team. And I just enjoyed the heck out of that. That was really such a fun game, because usually when you play games, you're on your own. Like, it's your own experience. But, like, it takes me way back to, like, the Tishu days of, like, playing a game with an opponent and an ally, trying to, like, get things straight somehow.
Yeah. All right, so 2022 holds strong. War of the Ring, the card game, still our game of the year. 2021, we picked Dominant Species Marine. A lot of good games came out that year. We had Ark Nova, Sleeping Gods,
Okay.
Cascadia, which was my personal game of the year.
Uh-huh.
Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, which has a whole bunch of subtext to it now, which we keep that off the air. Ankh.
Okay.
Kemet, Blood and Sand.
Very, very good. We're glad to see it.
Living Forest, Kennerspiel winner.
Big surprise, not to us though.
Final Girl.
Excellent.
Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition.
Yeah, fine. Don't release the expansion, jerks.
Bitoku.
Okay.
Boon Lake. Korra,
Yeah.
Rise of an Empire, and Botanic.
Yeah. A lot of good games here. A lot of good games. I probably was the only person out there oddly championing Korra, Rise of an Empire.
Oh,
I
love this game, yeah.
Clean, simple, fun to play. I love the action selection mechanic that, everyone gets to pick actions and they play out in a certain thing. And there's a chase. I mean, you're basically dealing off a board, but it's great. Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition. I own Clash of Cultures. I don't own Monumental Edition because I'm trying to get to the point where I'm either going to keep my base game or unload to get the Monumental Edition, because the expansion is like $1 billion and locked in a crate somewhere, with, I don't know, it's safe. It's safe somewhere right next to the Ark of the Covenant. Living Forest is good. It's Kemet, Blood and Sand. I think that's the one. That's one of the games certainly that I will remember, because I've loved Kemet, and I love the fact that they've refined it down to an essential edition, and it's a great game. Ankh is just a lot. Ares Expedition is, for me, again, I know sacrilegious, this is a hot take, a better version of Terraforming Mars. I didn't say that out loud. And I know everyone loves Ark Nova. Sleeping Gods was a little too little. It wasn't. I was hoping for more for that. But Dominant Species Marine stays my number one game for 2021. It does everything.
Yeah, I think so. In 2021, my game of the year was Cascadia. It still is. It's still my favorite game from that year. Dominant Species Marine was my number 2. I think it could potentially drop to number 3 behind Kemet, because I've played Kemet a lot since then, and I have not played Dominant Species Marine enough. But I think the average between us, it's still Dominant Species Marine.
Yeah.
Cascadia was always number 1 for me. It's just a game you'd never played, so it didn't make it to the top for the show.
Well, also Dominant Species Marine, again, was a refinement of Dominant Species in a really meaningful way. And rest in peace.
Absolutely. And made it much more accessible as a game, because it's so much shorter.
It's so much shorter. It's more straightforward. It allows you to have diversity at the table, and it's great.
Yeah.
And I think in many years this would be it was someone's number 1 of top 100, but Dominant Species Marine. Yeah.
Yep. No, great game. Happy to keep that there. All right, the year 2020.
Wow, that'd be a lot of games.
Yeah, no, this is the year. This is the year everything broke. So we picked On Mars. This game came out in January that year. So it's interesting that at the end of the year, this is still our number 1 game of the year. But it's also a year in which we didn't play a lot of games with other people because reasons.
Why, Anthony? Why?
I don't know.
What happened?
What happened? I blacked out the whole year. I don't remember. So not a lot of games came out this year either because of the same reasons. So
sure,
games that did come out that we kind of highlighted: Dune Imperium,
of course,
Lost Ruins of Arnak,
excellent,
Eclipse, Second Dawn of the Galaxy,
beautiful,
Kanban EV,
excellent,
Beyond the Sun,
love it,
Micro Macro, Crime City,
cool, own it,
Marvel United,
own way too much of it,
and Fort.
Yes, own that as well.
Yes, these are games that I think between us we might own all of these. I might own all. I think I actually own all of these. That's sick.
Yeah.
On Mars versus all of these, I will tell you mine has changed. But where are you at?
Oh, okay. The We're not considering the expansion, right?
For On Mars, no.
Yeah.
It had
Okay.
not come out yet.
So the expansion from On Mars makes On Mars better, in
Sure.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Because again, it took it took a couple of gameplays to really understand what On Mars needed. Like, what was the vibe of that,
Yeah.
right? Because the expansion made it better for sure. Uh, I would say, considering again the amount, if I'm going to look at the amount of gameplay time, I mean, mine has changed as well.
Ooh, okay. We both changed. Interesting.
Why don't you go first? I already know what yours is, but go ahead.
Yeah, so for me it's Lost Ruins of Arnak. That
Shocker.
Yeah, and here's the thing is we did On Mars as our game of the year, and I was very happy with that because I played it like
Hmm.
4 or 5 times at the beginning of 2020, and I was like, I love this game. This is his best game. I love it. And then COVID happened, and I didn't play it for the rest of the year. Um, Lost Ruins of Arnak came in towards the end of the year, and I immediately fell in love with it so much that it jumped into like the top 25 on my top 100, and it's still there.
Hmm.
Love this game. And with the expansions, we have asymmetrical starting powers. We have the campaigns you can run through now. It's just such a fantastic game. And I'll even say of this list, I might like Kanban EV more now than On Mars as a Lacerda game, just for the
Wow.
accessibility
Sure.
and the tweaks they made to that formula. I love On Mars still, but if you
Sure.
don't have that expansion in there, I'd probably rather play Kanban. So I think for me it's Lost Ruins. On Mars is still way up there. It's a great game. It has not gotten the table time to keep it at number one for me.
Yeah, I think the expansion does bring it back, but again, we're not considering the expansion here. So as of year of 2020, the two things I look back at when I look at my Type 100 itself, I look at how many times does this game get to the table, and what kind of opportunities and experiences does it offer. And Dune Imperium
Mm,
got to the table a lot,
yeah.
by far more than I ever thought. Like, I love Dune, but the IP is not the reason why I love this game. It's because it's a surprisingly crunchy worker placement game where you do have to do conversions, and yet you got the deck building as well. I have a problem not getting the certain cards that I need, but again, it plays really well, and it does get better with the expansions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
All right, great. So 2020, we got it wrong. How's that?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Under review.
Under
We went.
duress. That was a tough year.
It was.
All right, 2019. We picked City of the Big Shoulders as our game of the year.
Mhm.
Other games that came out that year: Wingspan
Oh
was
my god.
not our game of the year. Barrage, PAX Premier Second
Uh-huh.
Edition, Marvel
Sure.
Champions, the card game,
Uh-oh.
Maracaibo,
That's a thing.
Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle Earth,
Sure.
Watergate,
Yes.
Marco Polo 2, Tiny
Mhm.
Towns, Pipeline, The Magnificent, and Villagers.
Mm.
This was a weird year in that Wingspan came out in March, I think, or February, and
Mhm.
just dominated the whole year. It's all anybody talked about. And then all
Sure.
the rest of these games kind of just came out quietly in the background.
Yes.
And then, like, now 4 years later, you look back, you're like, that was an okay year. That wasn't a bad year at all. Um,
Well,
City of the
also,
Big
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Go
City of the
ahead.
Big Shoulders is a good game, but I look back at it now and I'm like, I don't know. I think I like some of these other ones a little bit better. They just kind of like percolated and grew over time.
Sure. Do you have a different number one here?
I do, yeah, and I think everybody will know what it is based on how often I've talked about it over the years.
Jeez. Even people who don't listen to the podcast knows what it is.
Yeah, no, it's like my number 3 game of all time now. Like it happens slowly over time because when it came out, I was like, actually before it came out, I made fun of it. It's Marvel Champions, the card game. I
Mhm.
made fun of this game. I was like, "What are you doing? This is like cynical. You're just trying to cash in." The art, you said the art wasn't great, and I was like, "I agree. It looked cheap."
Mhm.
And then I played it, and I was like, "That's pretty good." And I was like, "Okay, I'll get the next expansion when it comes out." And I was like, "This is fine. This is fine. This is fine." And then like early 2020, I was like, "Actually, this is great." And now it's like, "This is brilliant," and I love it, and I have all of it. So Marvel Champions is by far the game I've played the most of these, and
Sure.
it's still in my top 5 personally.
Yeah, going back, I have a, I have a lot of these games, give or take, around my top 100. One of these that's super, super high is because it's such an amazing game, and that's Watergate.
Yeah.
The reason why I would have a hard time putting that at number one is because it's a two-player game, and beyond what it does, which is amazing, it doesn't do anything else. The game that would have been my number one after length of time and experience is Villagers. Villagers, for whatever reason, people just keep wanting to play that. And as a person who brought the game to game night, it's just a wonderful experience. It offers a lot of opportunities, a lot of different ways to win and to play the game. Obviously, the expansion makes it better, but it got so much game time that year, and it was surprising. It was surprising. This was their first big game from Sinister Fish, and it's just great. It's just weirdly great.
It's really good, yeah. All right, yeah, so 2019, a little bit of a shift there. And I remember when we did 2019, we're like, I don't know, it's been a weird year. But I think we just needed the time. A lot of these games came out at the end of the year too, which made it tough.
Yeah.
2018, we chose Root as our game of the year. This was a great year. So,
oh yeah,
looking back, we got Brass Birmingham. We got
Everdell.
Number one game of all time. Yeah, it came out that year. We got Everdell. We got Underwater Cities.
What?
Quacks of Quedlinburg. Teotihuacan. Obsession.
Excellent.
Rising Sun.
I love it. I know you don't, but I love it.
I don't. Welcome to.
You love that. I don't.
Yep. Carpe Diem. Smartphone. Sprawlopolis.
Smartphone.
Yeah, there's a couple here for me. Sprawlopolis, Keyforge, and Feudum.
I love Feudum.
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, Root is still up there for me. I would still consider it my favorite game of the year, but it's really close because there's like 5 others here that are in my top.
That's great.
It's a great year.
Same here. I mean, Feudum's up there in my top 20. Smartphone Inc. is up there. Obsession is up there. As Anthony could tell you, I just bounced around and was playing and or teaching that game around the clock. So Teotihuacan is great. Quacks is amazing. I mean, Birmingham's great. Everdell's great. I mean, this is Murderer's Row here this year.
Yeah.
Mine would change here. Yours change?
No, Root is still up there for me. It's my number 2 of all time.
So one of my number 1 of all time in my top 100, give or take around that year, was Underwater Cities.
Yeah.
It's gotten tremendous game. It's hit the table a ton. It offers so much complexity in so many different ways to kind of win, and I love that. And people love it. And it's a serious competitor to Terraforming Mars. So, yeah.
I think we would have had a very different discussion if that game had come out in the US earlier.
Sure.
Because it hit here like late December. So we didn't play it till 2019. We played it at PAX, but we didn't play it like fully here until 2019.
Sure.
But yeah, it's such a good game.
Yeah.
All right.
So many great games that year.
Yeah, it was a really good one. 2017, also solid year. Spirit Island was our top pick for the year. Other games that came out that year though, Gloomhaven, little game you might have heard of. Twilight Imperium 4.
Who? Where?
Yeah. Say what now?
There's 4 versions of it?
Apparently.
Ugh.
Gaia Project.
Okay.
Too Many Bones. Anachrony. Lisboa. Clans of Caledonia. Azul. Sagrada. Dinosaur Island.
Oof.
Century Spice Road. And then some fun ones here. Bunny Kingdom, London, and Gentis.
Gentis, nice.
Yeah.
Another very good year.
Yeah. Yeah. There was like a solid 3-year period there where I think we just got top 100 game after top 100 game.
I mean, just like we just talked about 2018. There's no bad choice. 2017, really no bad choice. I don't. Spirit Island's been either number 1 or in my top 5, so it's hard to say that I would switch off. But I mean, my number 1 game was Spirit. 1 year has been Spirit Island, and 1 year has been Lisboa.
Yeah.
So I guess given the choice, it would be Lisboa.
Yeah, This one's tough for me too. Like I think I will stick with Spirit Island just because I've played it the most. But
Sure.
Twilight Imperium 4 is still among my favorite gaming experiences of all
Oh,
time.
sure. Sure.
Um, and like in 2018, which was again the next year, but I got this game to the table like 6 times that year, which for this
Mhm.
game is amazing. And it was an event every time I would come home talking about it. My whole family
Oh,
would be
yeah?
like, "What are you talking about? We don't care." But it's so much fun. And there's other games on this list that are among my most played, like Clans of Caledonia. Played that game a
Mhm.
million times. Love that game.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
Spirit Island is still way up there for me.
Excellent.
All right, 2016, which is the third year in this like 3-year sprint of amazing games.
Jeez.
We chose Scythe.
Mhm.
Uh, this was hotly contested, I think,
Sure.
because the other big game that came out that year was Terraforming Mars,
Yeah.
as well as a bunch of other stuff, including Star Wars Rebellion, Great Western Trail, Feast for Odin, Arkham Horror LCG, Mansions of Madness Second Edition, Mechs vs. Minions, Inish, Vinos, Lorenzo Il Magnifico, Yokohama, Santorini, King Domino, First Class, Star Wars Destiny, Star Trek Ascendancy, Castles of Burgundy, the card game. There's like 20 more, but I stopped there. Uh,
Well, meant yeah. I'll
yeah, just
mention I'll mention Castles of Burgundy, the card game I thought was fantastic. Star Trek Ascendancy is the best Star Trek game out there. Fleet Captains is probably number 2. And just as far as honorable mentions are concerned, like there's a lot of great games this year,
yeah,
that year. Mhm. Do you have a difference? Do you have a change? Do you have a shift?
yeah. Like I think I was fighting kind of against Scythe from the start. So
Well,
like,
we should also mention, I don't think we mentioned as a start, like we have to come to consensus on all of these top game of the year. So it is always a collaborative, combative, cooperative, solo kind of
yeah, yeah,
experience. So yeah, the podcast has to make a decision, and depending on who we're with that year, as well as guest hosts too. So all of the games as consensus.
yeah,
So
yeah. So if like one game's one person's number one and it's the other person's number three, it might become the number one depending on what else there is.
we run it through an algorithm just to
Oh
be
yeah,
safe
the
and secure.
algorithm, the die. We roll the die.
It's a very expensive die.
Yeah, I think for me it's tough. It's a toss up between Terraforming Mars, or Star Wars Rebellion, which is just like a fantastic, amazing experience. Which I had not really played much the year it came out, but it got to
Hmm.
the table a bunch in 2018 and 2019. Um, if it wasn't for War of the Ring, it probably would be that because War of the Ring
Hmm.
is still the game I'd rather play than Rebellion. But yeah, I guess I'll take the boring answer with Terraforming Mars, but Rebellion's pretty close.
I also didn't mention First Class. First Class is you
Very
build a
good.
train and
Yes.
it's the game I love the most that's been out of print, so I do not own a copy, and I have I wake up screaming in the middle of the night of not owning this game, just out of fear that it will not get reprinted, and I will not pay crazy money for it. Do not pay crazy money for it, but it is a great game.
Yeah.
Star Wars Rebellion, weirdly enough, even despite the fact that it was an IP that you and I both know and love extensively, we could do a
Hmm.
whole podcast just on Star Wars.
Right.
I think that there's some level of, because it's such a well-known and well-loved IP, that it almost does not get the credit for being such a mechanically brilliant game.
Yeah.
And I love Scythe. Scythe with the Fenris expansion is outstanding. Scythe as a base game, because we're not considering expansions. I gotta say, Star Wars Rebellion also better with its expansion because it fixes some of the game mechanics as far as battle. That would be my number one. Yeah. Star Wars Rebellion.
Yeah, I'm close. I'm almost with you on that.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, so if we had to come to a consensus, it'd probably be Star Wars Rebellion.
Mhm.
All right, 2015. Our kind of quasi choice that year because we had like a weird game of the year discussion was Voyages of Marco Polo.
Mm,
Great game. Other
great game.
games that came out that year, and this was the year of like the weird legacy type stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
we had some oddball stuff, but we had Through the Ages, a new story of civilization, kind of the remake of that. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was the big thing that everybody was talking about.
Yep.
Seven Wonders Duel, Food
Excellent.
Chain Magnet.
What is this? See,
Yeah.
I would like that game more if it had crazy, ridiculous upgrade components.
Oh yes, I want to spend $400 for a new version of that game, please.
Wait, can you check the board? Is it up yet?
It's not up yet. Sorry,
damn it.
it was an estimate.
Oh, okay.
Uh, We also had Blood Rage,
Blood Rage.
The Gallerist, Grand
Yes.
Austria Hotel, Tricarion, I know, favorite game of
Woo!
yours.
Love it.
Codenames, Time Stories, Isle of Skye, Iki, Potion Explosion, Shakespeare, and Leaving Earth.
Okay. I mean, there's some bangers in here. Like,
Yeah.
no lie. Like, we mentioned the others being great, but Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization, just let that sit for a while. I mean, again, the legacy mechanics and innovation there is just amazing. But Through the Ages, brother, A New Story of Civilization is just immense, amazing Civ game. Food Chain Magnet that year, again, a splatter you can actually play, and is cutthroat as all get out. And then, of course, Blood Rage.
Yeah, Blood Rage.
Blood Rage. Why is that a thing? It's a thing.
Yeah.
And then I know you love the Gallerist. It's one of your favorite.
It is my favorite Lacerda. It's my number one Lacerda. Yep.
Mine's Lisbo. Tricarion I love. It's much better with the expansion, but it's my favorite Mind Clash game. So and then a lot of other good games like Codenames and such. And Anthony never got to play Shakespeare.
Oh, we got to play that.
And that's out of print.
It is out of print, but I have it, so we got to make that happen.
Excellent.
It's a favorite. I love it.
Okay. Do you have a difference? Because I know I love the Voyages of Marco Polo, but I think you have an unhealthy relationship with it.
Voyages of Marco Polo.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still it would still be my game of the year from that year. Like, this is one of those ones, like, I found it at the game store that was near my work. Like, I got off work and I walked over to the Complete Strategist in Manhattan, and they had a copy on the shelf, and I was like, oh my god, this looks great. And I bought it and brought it back, and we played it at my apartment in Brooklyn. And I was immediately like, this is amazing. This might be my new favorite game. And it's not my favorite game now, but for a while there I was obsessed with it. I've played it probably 100 times online. So Seven Wonders Duel is really close, but this is still my favorite for the year.
Being that this is 2015, we've had a lot of years to play these games. So, and I think obviously all these games as we go further back. I love so many of these games. Like,
yeah,
so many of these games are like in my top 10, like, or around it, right? Through the Ages, Food Chain, Blood Rage, Gallerist, Tricarion, and others, and the others. But again, so many years of playing those games, it's going to be weird to say is like there are other games in that year that are better, I think. But I think the Voyages of Marco Polo just plays, man. It just gets table time. Like, it's again, it could just be a normal Euro game that just fades away. But the fact that they made a second edition up to it because it was so beloved, and because it's not a simple Euro game. It's a Euro game, and yet it is broken with your special abilities, and yet it's balanced. So yeah, Voyages of Marco Polo would stay my number one for that year.
Ooh, it's unanimous. No changes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 2014, we picked Roll for the Galaxy. Now,
love it.
Other games that came out that year, because now we're up like almost 10 years ago. So this is all these are all good games that we enjoy.
Yes.
Star Wars Imperial Assault. I have all of it. It's great. We should play it. Orleans, Five Tribes, Fields of Arle, Patchwork, Star Realms, Castles of Mad King Ludwig, La Granja, Dead of Winter, Arcadia Quest, Imperial Settlers, Paperback, The Battle of Five Armies, and Arkwright.
Yeah, again, like you said, all great games. Nothing bad necessarily in here. All bangers across the board. And I own a lot of these games, and I own like a crazy sickening level of Arcadia Quest.
Yeah.
It's still Roll for the Galaxy for me.
Roll for the Galaxy is very good. I think Paperback is probably the game I look back on the most fondly.
Sure.
I most recently paid way too much money for the 10th anniversary edition. And this is a game that, especially back in 2014, was always out of print because they hadn't really discovered crowdfunding yet. So it was just like, we made 50, they were sold out. We made 100, they were sold out. So you just kept hearing about it, and people had copies, and you're like, oh, I really want to play that game. So paperback, and for a while I would say hardback was better, but I've kind of come around again. I'm like, nah, I like paperback more.
Mm.
I went on a huge Imperial Settlers kick for a long time. I still love that game. I have all the stuff, but I haven't played it as much recently. I own all the Imperial Assault stuff, but I think part of that is just the miniatures. But paperback is a game that gets played and I love. And yeah, I think if I was going to re-litigate 2014, that would be my game of the year.
Well, I could show you from right here, the audience kit, because this is an audio podcast, Anthony, and not. My Roll for the Galaxy is right over there, right behind me,
Yeah, there it is.
on the desk. It's right there, buddy.
Yeah. No, mine's in the basement. It lost its prime space upstairs. So,
Oh,
unfortunately, I still have it though. I do still have it.
again, I think a lot of the benefits, and we recently played Terraforming Mars, the dice game, and that reminds me a lot of Roll for the Galaxy, because obviously you're rolling dice for resources and then putting planets out and exploring and shuttling resources. I like that better than Terraforming Mars dice game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's a great game. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then last but not least was our first year of the show, 2013.
What a year. We were kids. We
Yeah.
know what we were talking about. We were drunk on cardboard.
Yeah. I don't think we played a single one of these games in 2013, except no, there's at least one here we did play.
Oh, we definitely,
yeah. Our game of the year in that discussion was a little belated, but we talked about it like early 2014 was Caverna, the Cave Farmers.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel-ish to Agricola. But other games that came out that year, we had Concordia.
Oh, boy.
Russian Railroads, Nations, Viticulture, Rococo, Bruges, Battlelore 2nd Edition, Skull King, Amerigo, 1775 Rebellion, The Duke, and Spirium.
Spirium?
I
Spirium's
know.
on this list.
We played it at Myriad, so it's got to be on this list.
A lot of great games. One of my favorite games. One game that's in my top 10, top 5, depending on the year. Top 1, depending on the year. Depending on the year. Bruges. I love Bruges. Bruges is awesome. A lot of these games are awesome. And again, my closest to my heart is Bruges. I think if I'm going to be fair and objective, it's probably going to be Concordia. Because as much as I love Caverna, the Cave Farmers, it can be a little overly forgiving. You know, it's trying to make up for the brutalness of Agricola. So, but Concordia, again, if I have to look back, I do not own Concordia, and it's probably one of the games I played the most because it gets all the table time.
Yeah. Concordia is brilliant. Yeah, and it's a game like early on, I was like, this is good. And the more I've played it, I'm like, actually, this is pretty good.
It's surprisingly it's not surprisingly good. I mean, obviously from the designer here, but like it's amazingly good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would put Concordia way up there. I gotta go with Spirium. It's one of those games like I think we played it at the end of the year, beginning early of the next year, and maybe didn't really even click for me as much how much I liked it until later. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those games that if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you know I champion this game constantly. Love Spirium. Wish they would reprint it. Give us some expansions. Give it the stupid overpriced Kickstarter experience that we're all used to. I would spend $100 in an upgraded Spirium. I would do that.
You should talk to Lucky Duck Games. See if they'll do it right after.
Yeah, get on it. Let's do
after
it.
They make $1 million off Fujay Magnet.
Oh yeah, they're gonna do that.
I mean, and here, Bruges came out with a new edition. We just talked about the Feld City Collection.
Sure.
I love Bruges so much that I was willing to pay a ridiculous amount of money for a newer variation on that. It is not as good. It is not. The original Bruges game is better. The other one is just blah. Like it's just more. It hurts me that it just hurts. It just hurts, man. But Concordia, I love Bruges. But Concordia was just. I mean, it's, and again, the expansions have been amazing too over the years. It's hit after hit after hit. So
yeah,
Anthony, 10 years of games. So some changes, some stay the same. Again, we haven't litigated all of this. Is what happens behind the scenes. So like after we come out with them, then we have to fight. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, several dice rolls, rock paper scissors, negotiations, and ambassadors kind of trade, so forth and so on. And diplomatic envoys and things like that. We haven't done that kind of math, but hopefully that gives you a sense of our last 10, the best games of the year. So many really good years, man. 10 good years.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
It's always fun to look back at these. I'm like, wow, those all came out the same year. No wonder I'm broke. Woo.
Well, considering those were back in the days when you could actually afford to purchase games instead of like own like a game that is like $1 million. So, do we have a number yet, Anthony?
No, sorry.
All right. Yeah. Well, until we get the number of what Fuche Magnet, the Lucky Ducks edition, cost, this is Chris.
And this is Anthony.
And we'll save you all a seat at the table. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.